I wonder what this shiny thing does. I'm not very good at video games, but that doesn't stop me from recognizing that Fear and Hunger is the greatest RPG Maker horror game made in the past decade. Why? Well, you'll find out later, but also because you can place down a bear trap and trick this guard into getting his legs ripped off. Feeling pretty cool, you run away laughing maniacally and then accidentally read a Necronomicon, fail a coin flip, and now you're laughing maniacally in the psych ward in the sky. Or you can go an entire playthrough without any of that happening. Many years ago, I made a video talking about all the ways that RPG Maker horror games have grown stale. Horror is the genre that first catapulted RPG Maker into the public eye due to its low barrier to entry and unique. But as the years have gone by, the story tropes and gameplay mechanics from the first couple successful games have been rehashed with different coats of paint ad nauseum. I mean, you know it's gotten bad when the most successful recent RPG Maker horror game is an incest game. That popularity died off along with most of the innovation in the genre. You could argue the internet itself changed, but I think people just got tired of the same formula. The genre stagnated for years as developers rehashed the tried and true RPG Maker horror formula with diminishing returns. But the audience was still there, hibernating, waiting for the next innovative RPG Maker horror game to hyperfixate on. When it came, it was going to be big, and come it did. Literally. About a year ago, Fear and Hunger exploded into popularity on YouTube. It's a game that lends itself well to YouTube success, largely due to the incredible depth and uniqueness of its story. Fear and Hunger is a dark fantasy game that allows players to experience its story and world organically. There's no big info dumps or meandering plot moments, and a lot of the lore requires deeper exploration. The entirety of it isn't apparent from a single or even multiple playthroughs, and really the lore never really has a concrete canon, which results in a big market for YouTube lore videos, and it fosters a strong community. The game's also inspired by Berserk, so it's basically the perfect game. While the story is a large part of Fear and Hunger's success, it's everything else that makes it revolutionary. The Coffin of Andy and LeyLey is the other recent successful RPG Maker horror game, but the only thing that game has going for it is its story, the quality of which is debatable, but what isn't debatable is that everything else is mediocre, tried and true RPG Maker horror stuff. Fear and Hunger isn't like that. It's an entirely new gaming experience, not just within RPG Maker, but as a game in general. In fact, I completely forgot it was an RPG Maker game while playing and got crazy whiplash when I saw familiar names in the credits. There's a variety of things that make Fear and Hunger truly stand out as an RPG Maker horror game, and while I want to talk about the mechanics because that's the really revolutionary aspect, first we must touch on the graphics. The monsters in Fear and Hunger look completely unnatural, and the environments are filled with unfamiliar and strange things. Because of this, there's never really a point where you feel safe or comfortable. The player is constantly on edge because they feel entirely out of their element. This is also in part due to the game's mechanics, but we'll get to that later. This is a big change as compared to a lot of RPG Maker horror games, which often take place in, or at least start off in, a familiar type of location with things to ground you. Fear and Hunger starts off in a dungeon, which already isn't familiar, but is made even less familiar by its recent descent into madness. Because there is a true sense of terror of the unknown that pervades the entire game, the creepy feeling never quite leaves you. The game doesn't have to rely on jump scares to be scary because the graphics and setting are always unsettling. Then you run across some deranged alien creature that is far removed from anything normal or human, and every single bone in your body is telling you if I don't get away, I'm going to die. This is a powerful and immersive feeling that is constantly present in the dungeons of Fear and Hunger. The most comfortable you feel is when you come across another adventurer who looks familiar and human, which is an excellent game design decision because it makes finding companions have a real impact. When they don't join you, you immediately have a visceral reaction of please don't leave me alone. When they do join, it makes the player feel like they're progressing and getting stronger because now they have a friend that they can sacrifice in order to save themselves. The graphics in Fear and Hunger leave the player constantly unsettled, and as locations ramp up in strangeness, the player truly feels like they're diving deeper and deeper into this otherworldly dungeon. Of course, this feeling isn't only due to the graphics, there's also The sound design in Fear and Hunger is the most excellent sound design I have ever experienced. Not only do things look unnatural, they sound unnatural. You walk on strange substances that sound alien. You hear sounds you've never heard before in your life coming from the darkness. The drip of the caverns tells you you're in too deep. All of this while the most foreboding soundtrack I've ever heard plays. I mean, Jesus, even the soundtrack sounds unnatural and alien. It fits so well into the background that it almost sounds like the noises are coming from some alien object or creature within the dungeons themselves. The soundtrack also becomes more mystical as you explore the more supernatural parts of the dungeon, marking your progress and making it feel as though you're discovering something nobody else has ever seen. Finally, the meat of what makes Fear and Hunger a revolution in RPG Maker horror games is the unbelievable depth and uniqueness of the mechanics. I honestly feel a bit under-equipped to talk about the mechanics of this game because while I did explore many of them, I bet you I only got through maybe half, which is fantastic. That means there's a ton of replayability possible here, but it means I seem less intelligent. So I'll talk about what I can and what I know, and then the rest, well, hopefully you guys will share some in the comments, or maybe you can find them out by playing the game yourself. But not before you hit the subscribe button. First off, we need to talk about the combat system. It is insanely unique, and it wasn't only fun and engaging to interact with, but it also elevated the atmosphere of the game. See, in Fear and Hunger, for the most part, you are weak, and you suck, and you will die. Monsters attack by using their limbs, which you can cut off. Different limbs do different things, and different ones need to be cut off to kill each monster. How do you know which to cut off? Well, by dying. See, in Fear and Hunger, knowledge is power. Each monster is a puzzle you need to figure out. There's a lot you're not gonna know unless you play a bunch and discover it organically. There's a lot of situations like this that exist outside of combat as well. The most obvious being right at the start. If it's your first playthrough, you might be so inclined to stock up on supplies before heading to the dungeons, but this would result in you losing the dash skill, which means you can't run, which means everything can catch you. This makes your playthrough infinitely harder, but if you're stubborn like me, you'll just keep playing even after learning of your catastrophic mistake. This feeling of not knowing what to do or what's going on is exactly what your character feels. It's immersive. Some things in Fear and Hunger can be learned by reading the actual books in the game, like how to make a skin suit. But you can only do that if you find the book and it's RNG dependent. Or you can find an empty scroll and a quill and make it spawn the book, but only if you know what the book is called. A lot of the game is like this. There's mechanics you'd never know existed unless you paid close attention or read the wiki or did a lot of exploring. Like, you can get in a fight with these hounds and try to just kill them, or you can throw a stick to distract them and make it a lot easier, but a lot of gamers wouldn't even think to do this. So often when you get consumables in a game, you don't need them, so we've been conditioned to not use them, or often still there are mechanics presented that aren't really used. This was my initial impression of the talk mechanic, but no, it offers a ton of unique situations and can allow you to get special party members. Every mechanic serves a genuine purpose. There's no filler mechanics, there's no wasted consumables, except maybe dirt, and even mechanics that seem to be a waste are actually there to teach you valuable lessons about the game. You are constantly progressing and learning while playing this game. For another example, if you steal this cube, all these cave dwellers are going to be mad at you and try to kill you, but if you kill this boss and wear this crown, they will praise you and let you take it no problem. How do you know how to do that? Probably by reading the wiki, but imagine being the first person to discover that. Imagine that feeling. You are literally your character discovering new ways to survive in this alien world. Oh, by the way, you also have a hunger and a sanity meter, so you need to eat and drink and smoke, and if you don't, you might go crazy and kill everyone. Even this small child must smoke. These dungeons are truly evil, corrupting the youth. All that is to say that a lot of this game is just figuring things out. There's no explicit tutorial, and there's definitely no hand-holding. You are alone in this terrifying dungeon, and you need to do everything you can to survive. Or you can just run away. Or can you? Because the game's mechanics are like this, you constantly feel under-equipped and afraid. In a lot of horror games, there's build-up, jump scare, and then you're fine. Your heart rate slows back down and you stop being so afraid. Not Fear and Hunger. Every monster has the capability to kill you or inflict you with some death ailment, which, by the way, you have no idea what they do unless you get a book. So you feel weak, you feel stupid, you feel lost, and then this horrific abomination comes out of nowhere and tries to kill you. That's the cherry on top. It never lets up, you never feel fully equipped for the situation situation you're heading into, and you never know if something will kill you or maybe sort of help you. This is unbelievably good game design for a horror game. The game wants the player to feel weak and afraid, so instead of just writing moments of panic or making one jump scare, the developer has built this feeling into every single second of gameplay. That way, without very much dialogue being needed, the character is shown to be weak and the player actually feels like they are weak. Every now and again, though, you'll figure something out and you feel so smart. Instead of giving up in the face of all this adversity, you persevere, you fight, you learn, you make friends, you change fate, you survive. And then a single coin flip goes wrong and you're dead. Despite all the hard work, all the learning, the growth, it can still all be taken away in an instant without anything you can do about it. This feeling of disempowerment isn't built into many games in general, let alone an rpgmaker horror game. It's a compelling yet terrifying concept, and it turns a lot of people off. But those it turns on, it really turns on. There's nothing quite like Fear and Hunger, so here's to hoping it sparks a new generation of creative developers making awesome RPG Maker horror games. There's a certain magic to RPG Maker games, magic that gets lost on you if you slog through all the crappy games made in it. But if you stick to the gems, that philosophy rings through. It's powerful enough for a developer, yet simple enough for a child. That childlike wonder and imagination and creativity can be fully unleashed, but it has the tools to make an engaging and interesting gaming experience. So if you like Fear and Hunger, or were at all intrigued by what you saw in this video, and you're interested in game development, even just a little bit, I urge you to give RPG Maker a shot. You can really create a lot with it, and that's what we need. We need developers with new, fresh ideas, and without any of the deadlines and stress and pressures on AAA companies, who can really make something creative and special and new. So get out there, play Fear and Hunger if you haven't yet, try making a game. I can't wait to see what you come up with. Have a good day.